I'm going to try to, have some time for questions as well. So I divided it into three areas today. One of them is going to be focusing on, our comments about last year. But what's important also is I've asked Jessica Rento with Josh Mays to speak about issues of security. And then I've also asked Agnes Wong Nickerson to speak about the budget, because I think it's maybe not as obvious with the context of the current kind of governor's message. So one of the things I did want to say is that, in light of what we've seen at Brown University and throughout the country, I realize for a lot of people, the issue of safety and security is a big deal, as it is for us. So we've spent a considerable time in the leadership team working with Josh Mays, AVP Josh Mays, and Jessica and her team to really make sure that we are prepared. And more recently, we did send out some messaging regarding about, if you're approached, what to do, what our safety protocols are. But I'm going to let them go into greater detail and particularly give you the opportunity to ask further questions on that. I also want to say that obviously, the stress and uncertainty goes beyond safety. It's also, many of us are those who are dealing with grants and contracts, the issues of whether or not indirect costs will be paid at the federal level or not. All these things create, I think, again, the uncertainty that makes us less certain about our future. So I wanted to say that I want to make sure that we are conscious of those issues, address those issues, and move forward in a way that the faculty and staff and students feel comfortable with. The second issue is I also wanted to highlight some of the things that I think we can talk about with some pride. The first one is that we've completed most of the activities in the 5-year strategic plan. We've been moving forward and meeting many of the goals. Obviously, the R1 status has been an important accomplishment of faculty and staff and has created, I think, the kind of energy that at the national and international level has created recognition not only by our peers, but also by many students and their parents. The other thing that I want to spend some time on is about our reaccreditation, which is a WASC accreditation. As you well know, every 10 years, or you hope every 10 years, an institution must go through regional accreditation in order to move forward again, hopefully with another 10 years of accreditation. I wanted to give kudos to Madhavi McCall, who's been the lead in this process, although the shared governance process is fairly well outlined. We will be opening up opportunities for, and this is through the WASC accreditation process, for confidential emails that will be available to all and every staff, faculty, and community members to add to the committee. Those do not go to the campus, they go to WASC, and WASC then provides thematic areas. We do have, so for those who did not have time, we did have comments. We had a period where people were able to look at the report. But one of the things that's important when we look at WASC, what we need to know is 10 years ago, we had recommendations that we needed to respond to. And subsequently, I think we have done a reasonably good job in those responses. Similarly, based on the accreditation standards, the reviewers will come in and look at those standards relative to our thematic strand. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but I do want to encourage you to look at the webpage. Again, it is the final report, but you still will have an opportunity to comment. So I do want to encourage you to do that as well. Some positive notes. This was a year, if you will, where we expected the enrollment cliff in California to directly affect enrollment demand here at San Diego State. So last year, as you recall, we had 123,400 students who applied to San Diego State. This year, we actually have, it looks like we're reaching 125,000 applications. Again, I do think that when we look at the profile of those individuals applying, obviously it's a national as well as international, although our international numbers have gone down just like they've gone down across the country. But also we see increased interest at the local level as well as at the state level. Earlier today, I was at Chula Vista with Economic Development Commission. And again, a lot of their focus was how can residents of the South County have more opportunities, and how can we build the partnerships with the community colleges, particularly Southwest Community College, as well as the university. And I reminded them that we do have a partnership where we will have our nursing program and global campus. I want to give kudos to the psychology department. We will be launching a psychology degree at the Southwest Community College, and we also have a number of degrees that are being offered through Global Campus. So we're doing a lot, but clearly the idea, if you were to ask any community college president, is can you do more? And so, as I said, we're committed to access and excellence to the extent that we can, but the limitation is really the funding. We're given a target from the system. The system provides funding for that target. If we were to enroll any more, it would mean that we would only have as base tuition. And that's not a great model for success. So I just wanted to bring that to you. So I wanted to also talk about some of the other areas that are important. So in Mission Valley, the residential piece is important because we now have the Avalon Pay project that not only will generate market revenue for the campus, but more importantly, we now have affordable housing that will be developed, 126 units. Those were able to now provide access to faculty and staff. We actually were able to work with the system to change state law so that we can market, once those are built, to faculty and staff. We are also looking at other areas, and Agnes can speak to more of that, opportunities to really strategically think of additional opportunities for faculty and staff housing as well. In terms of the other important thing in Mission Valley is, of course, the first academic building will be built with San Diego Community College District bonds. That will be the STEM building with an accelerated STEM pathway. And we're going through the process, meaning, I should say, San Diego Community College District is going through their process in order to finish their due diligence for the funding and the development and also the builder for that particular building. The other area is Imperial Valley. I would be remiss. Of course, we've been very active there. The new STEM building has been built. We had our first chemistry class there. We are very excited that we are going to have the first building for student housing. Again, a shared project with Imperial Valley Community College in both shared costs but also shared use. So we're very, very excited that we can continue that in that direction as well. And then I wanted to speak a little bit about our ability to leverage our Career Services Center. So one of the activities in the strategic plan was to look at the efficient and practical use of career services. So 87% of our students either are have laboratory experiences, have work experiences, have experience in which they help them in their career trajectory. With the leadership of Danny Novell, we've been able to also create a lot of funding opportunities, and now we're one of the most well-financed career services center, not only in the system, but also we have more external funding in our career services than UC Berkeley, quite an accomplishment. And just recently, I went from a philanthropic event just today, where we have further funded opportunities through philanthropic funding for career services. So I wanted to highlight these because I do think it's important to recognize that, we have, I think, been very successful with our students in creating the environment, even given the size of the campus, with a credible pathway for success. And that's important largely because when I look at the enrollment landscape, whether we like it or not, parents and students are really looking at the opportunities for future employment in very serious ways. And the expectations have shifted in many ways from just the degree to the transition to the job. And because we've been able to really balance, if you will, between student affairs and academic affairs, as well as with our students who've been very involved in this process, I think we've had some important successes. The other thing that I wanted to switch to, because I know I only have 15 minutes, I believe, or less, I don't know, is I did want to have Agnes talk about the budget. Because I think the budget, although we're feeling a little better about it, it still isn't without its warts, and we need to speak about those plainly. So I've asked Agnes to speak about that, and then we can follow with and then we will follow with Jessica. So Agnes?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So I'd like to walk us through what we now know about the fiscal year, this coming year, fiscal year 26-27 budget. I want to talk about the state budget outlook and then the CSU budget outlook, as well as what it means to San Diego State. But I want to emphasize that this is very preliminary information. This is based on what we know right now as of this point of time. A lot can still change because between now there will be a May revise that usually the state can change the budget and then it will finalize it in June. So there's still a lot of moving pieces. So let's talk about the state budget. The governor released the preliminary budget for next fiscal year on January 9th. And compared to what we were to where things were just a few months ago, the picture has improved, actually. Back in November, the state was projecting a $18 billion deficit for this coming year, 26-27. The January budget actually now shows that coming year is more or less in balance. But then looking ahead one more year, fiscal year 27-28, there's still a projection of a deficit, but that deficit has come down from $35 billion projected in November to now $22 billion for that coming year. So directionally, this is positive news. However, it's also important to understand why the numbers look better and why there's still significant risk. Some of the improved revenue in this January budget is tied to the very strong stock market, which really connected to the AI sector, right? So that revenue is very volatile and may not be very sustainable. There are also some external pressures that we need to watch very closely, especially the federal policy changes, including rising healthcare costs that could impact the state budget. So while the state outlook is better than expected, it remains very fluid. And higher education, we are not insulated from future adjustments. So now let's look at CSU budget. So the preliminary governor budget for CSU also is better than expected, although it comes with a lot of cost pressure. On the revenue side, CSU is projecting that there will be additional $711 million in new revenue. Some of these new revenue is expected. For example, $144 million to restore the 3% general fund cut that we actually experienced in this current year, fiscal year 25-26. And then there's also $101 million for partial year 4 compact funding that was promised in the governor's budget back in June last year. Also, a $176 million increase of tuition revenue coming from the 6% tuition rate increase that the board has approved 2-3 years ago. And there's some actually positive, unexpected revenue that we didn't quite expect as a system. So there's a promise of year 5 compact in the amount of about $265 million will come to CSU in this coming year, which actually CSU didn't expect that coming. So that was really positive news. In addition, there's also a one-time allocation, interest-free loan for $144 million. For some of you remember, this year, the state gave CSU a one-time loan, $144 million. It's supposed to be repaid on June 30th, 2026. But essentially, the governor extended that repayment date for 1 year, interest-free. So, but on the expense side, so we talk about new revenue, CSU is facing a lot of cost pressure. So right now, based on what they know that they have committed already, the new expenses is $597 million, and mainly related to compensation, mandatory costs such as insurance, health benefits, utilities, state university grants, and also funding to support the 1% enrollment growth. So these pressures continue to grow faster than new revenue coming in. After accounting for all those commitments that CSU has, need to honor, there's still $113 million that is currently unallocated. So, at first glance, it feels like, oh, there's an extra $113 million. But that's actually not true, because in past years, whenever the state restores CSU for any budget cut, like the 3%, $144 million, in the past, CSU will pass that $144 million back to the campuses, right? Because this year we took a 3% budget cut. So in that $500+ million expenditure commitment that I talked about, didn't include the $144 million budget restoration back to the campuses. So right now, CSU as a system still figuring out how to spend the $113 million. Would it be returning to the campus? I know in the Board of Trustee meeting, talked about maybe can use some of that money for deferred maintenance, because it's also unfunded right now, or maybe some compensation needs. So there's just still a lot of, uncertainty about that budget. So now let's look at the SDSU budget outlook. Just a refresher. So last year, fiscal year 24-25, SDSU ended the year with a $14 million base deficit. The reason was that actually in that prior year, this SDSU actually received 46 million new revenue. Well, sorry, 32 million new revenue from general fund, tuition increase, and enrollment growth. However, the new expenses exceeded the new revenue by 14 million, primarily because of the 5% compensation increase across CSU that was not fully funded. So campuses have to partially fund that compensation increase. In our case, that's $14 million, and that explained the deficit that we saw in last year. And then in this current year, 25-26, the budget situation has worsened due to the 3% general fund budget cut. So SDSU actually essentially received very little new revenue, only about $1.5 million, but we have new mandatory costs, again, another $13.5 million. So resulted in another $12 million deficit. So between last year, 24-25, and this year, 25-26, we had in total $26 million deficit. But you probably also remember that we have implemented a budget reduction plan. Last year, $10 million across all divisions. In this current year, another $10 million across all divisions. So we have netted a $6 million base deficit that we will address in coming years. Looking ahead to next year, we have done some scenario planning, despite of all these moving pieces, we made some assumptions and did a scenario planning that we could potentially face another additional $5 million deficit, bringing the total cumulative deficit to $6 million from previously to the $5 million new one. And given the uncertainty, I think it's really prudent for us to have a plan, on a $5 million reduction at this stage for this coming year. That said, there's an important upside scenario. If CSU restores campuses, the prior 3% budget cut, without adding new mandatory costs, I mean, that's a big, assumption, then we could actually potentially use that restoration to cover the 11 million deficit, and that will, help us to be in balance. So as we look forward, there are several major uncertainties that, remain to be seen. So first of all, will the governor's January budget hold through the May revise and the final budget? So that's a big question that we don't have the answer for. And also enrollment demand, as the president mentioned, right now California residents' enrollment demand at our campus is still very strong. But non-residents are seeing some, weakness there for the reasons the president talked about. We also don't know what the compensation to be negotiated by unions, where it will land, right? So we don't know that number yet. And also, very importantly, we also don't know the chancellor's office. Will they restore campuses with the 3% cut, or would they use that funding for something different? So in closing, I just want to say 26, 27 next year, the outlook is clearly better than what we feared late last year, both at the state and the CSU levels. However, this is still a very preliminary picture, as we talked about before. And so I think caution, flexibility, and conservative planning are essential as we move forward through the May revise and then also the final budget decision. So thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Okay. We have questions for the president's report overall, or any additional?
Oh, now I'm going to turn it over to Jessica Rento.
We are limited on time with a late start, so I ask that, Jessica, if you can.
I will talk fast. Okay, everyone, I'm Jessica Rento. I'm the AVP of Administration. And in light of what we're seeing in Minnesota and in other places around the country, I was asked to come talk to everyone to talk about our protocols and preparedness for the different types of issues that folks are seeing across the country. So first, I want to mention that California law provides clear guidance on how universities respond to immigration enforcement activity specifically. Senate Bill 98 and Assembly Bill 21 establish procedures to foster a campus environment that is safe and inclusive for everyone. On January 28th, you all should have received an email from the president entitled Policies and Guidance Relating to Immigration Enforcement. If you did not read it, I encourage you to go back and read it. It provides substantive information about what our protocols are. But to sum it up into four main things, especially since we're tight on time. First, safety is of the utmost importance. If there is a concern for the safety of someone on our campus, call 911. If there's not an urgent threat to safety, but you are still witnessing harassment or discrimination, it's important to report to the appropriate offices as soon as possible so that the university can utilize its policies and procedures to address. Specifically relating to immigration enforcement, the second point I want to make sure you understand is there are designated leads on our campus if there is any sort of federal immigration enforcement activity. On the Mesa, it is myself and Josh Mays, our AVP over safety, and for SDSU Imperial Valley, it's Dean Nunez. So if you see an immigration officer and believe that there is some type of immigration enforcement activity, please contact us as soon as possible. There are other reasons for immigration officers to be on campus. Namely, we see them come for background checks for applicants. However, my view is better safe than sorry, so don't worry, just report it to us and we can figure out what is going on. The third point is, in compliance with state law, if federal immigration enforcement activity is confirmed, we will send out a message to the campus community. That message will include information about the time and location of the activity. But again, that is for immigration enforcement activity. If we have a student who comes in uniform and they work for Department of Homeland Security, that's not enforcement activity. If we have them coming for a background check, it's not enforcement activity. So it will only be messaging when there's enforcement activity. We are working closely with campus stakeholders to provide information and support on these issues. And then the fourth point that I want to make is residential communities, classrooms, research labs, our resource centers, and private offices are considered private and protected under our buildings and grounds policy. If there's a member of the public trying to gain access to a private area, please contact us as soon as possible so that we can intervene. To gain access to private areas, there are a number of things that need to be provided, and we don't want to put that on any of you in this room or our faculty and staff. Please contact us. And the protocols are, if you can't contact myself or Josh, whether you call and no one answers, or if you just don't have time to call find our phone number, call University Police and they can track us down. Another thing that I wanted to alert you to is on January 30th, we sent a message that went to MPPs, deans, chairs, department coordinators, and our cultural centers. And that provided guidance on how to respond to visitors, especially unscheduled visitors, including immigration enforcement officers. We are working on one specifically for faculty, and that is, we're close to finalizing that, and we'll be sending that guidance as well. So please help us spread the word so that everyone's informed and knows what to do. Thank you, and if you have any questions, let me know.
We open up for questions now?
Go run. I got it.
So that we have some time for questions, and just raise your hand and we'll recognize you in the order and get a microphone to you.
Hello, everyone. Senator Navarro here. Thank you for the updates. I'm referring especially to the latest update on safety. And I have two questions just because of what ICE is doing, whether the cops are there or not. My first question is, what kind of training does our police department here have on campus to be able to respond to ICE? And then my other question is, do we have a protocol for kidnappings on campus? Because ICE, when they show up, they're in and out in 15 minutes. So by the time we locate someone over the phone, or I don't know, so I'm just wondering if we have a procedure already so that we can tell our students, don't worry, this is what we're doing if ICE shows up to kidnap, because they've been doing that. Thank you.
I'm going to turn it over to Josh Mays, since he is more familiar with the many protocols that University Police have.
Thank you, and thank you for the question. And it's less about training for our officers and more about protocol and orientation. As the president mentioned at the outset of her remarks, we've already been before her team to go over different types of scenarios. Please call UPD, the non-emergency number, or 911, depending on what the incident is happening. We have discussed a variety of different scenarios, many of them including if they do arrive on campus and there is enforcement. Although the law prohibits UPD from participating, we have plans to work with whoever is the lead or the supervisor of that team as a point of contact for information sharing for safety purposes. We've talked about if students come, because Jessica mentioned about the communication that would go out to the campus community because enforcement is happening. We're prepared for students or counter-protesters to come to the area. We have plans that if it's safe to do so, we would have barriers. We would have dedicated areas to keep people safe, out of the roadway, out of traffic. We would use our STRATCOM emergency communication plan and partners, be educating the community. We would activate our EOC. So we would use the specific incident that is happening and plug it into our existing framework, which includes our Emergency Operations Center for quick coordination, communication to our community, and we, depending on what the facts and circumstances are, we would be responding appropriately. But the number one priority is to keep everyone on our campus safe, try to allow First Amendment activity to occur in the safest way possible. That could be a variety of different things, but we would not be caught flat-footed. We've been having conversations for many months. We've been monitoring the national events, the regional events. County law enforcement is all on the same page with respect to what if it happens in Chula Vista, what if it happens in Oceanside. So there's a county-wide plan with local law enforcement as well.
And on top of the response from University Police, we also have a response as far as notifying emergency contacts, putting individuals in touch with legal assistance, and providing that sort of support to ensure that, especially for a student, that they have the support that they need from their family, from a legal perspective, and from the university environment to ensure that as they are working through whatever may be going on, whether it's a detention or some sort of event where they cannot come to class, that they're not going to be penalized for that.
Just a quick follow-up. For the scenarios, is that information that could be shared with faculty, or how do we get access to that so we are also aware on, because time is of the essence in these situations?
So there's additional guidance that is forthcoming. It talks about scenarios, contacts. You can reach out to me directly if you want something specifically for your department, your area, your college. I'm happy to facilitate those discussions and conversations. A variety of different things can occur, but we would use our framework and our plans and triage that as appropriate. But happy to have offline personal conversations. Just email me and I'll respond quickly.
Hi, on the document that you're preparing for faculty, I hope that it really is step by step, because they're going to be in the classrooms by themselves, and in all honesty, they're not going to come ask permission from any of you. They're just going to come and go into the classroom, and it's that faculty member that is going to have to deal with them. So we really need to know what we can say or not say to them to come into this private area. So I hope you really do it on a step-by-step actual wording, because we're the ones that are going to deal with them when they come into the room to take whoever they're going to take away.
And we understand that concern, and we want to balance providing step-by-step guidance with also providing very clear, easy-to-follow guidance. So that's always what we're trying to balance.
Additional questions? And just to confirm, VP Wong, what you shared, there are a lot of numbers flowing very fast. I'm presuming this will come out as a campus budget update in the near future. Okay, great. Any additional questions for the president or no else? Senator Preciado?
My question is...
Hold on, sorry. Let's get your mic.
I haven't been in our forum for a while, but it's shocking that we are not having discussions as a Senate community about faculty hiring and the instructional budget as it relates to this budget discussion. I know everyone is interested in having that clarified, and so hopefully at a future meeting of the Senate, we can have a report from the University Resources Committee on how faculty hiring and the instructional budget is being prioritized in this process. It is critical for many of us to know that the mission is moving forward, and you saw our staff colleagues that are retiring. I don't know how many faculty are retiring, but I don't know if it was just 7 faculty lines that were recruited this year that are actually new lines. And I'm interested in knowing what that looks like moving forward. Thank you.
I believe Provost Tong will speak to that. And President De La Torre.
Jose, thank you for bringing that up. I know Provost Tom will be far more specific in that area, but one of the things that we did when the deficits hit the system in a very hard way is that we really looked at how we would look at academic investments as a priority and make, even though with a deficit, continue hiring. Last year was our toughest year because of the chill, which we needed to implement across the board. This year, we're going to move forward with tenure track hiring. And indeed, my philosophical approach is really that if you look at funding, so tuition, philanthropic dollars, research dollars, generally come in after you enroll people. So from a time revenue generation point of view, it's over a period of time. You know you're going to get it. We've got to hire faculty even when the deficits, and you know, time-bound deficits are not bad. I think sometimes we look at it in that we want to know what the deficit is. We want to plan to balance it. But the runway for academic affairs is very, very generous. This is the one thing that's critical. Why? For very specific reasons. The reputation of an institution, both in terms of research, in terms of enrollment, in terms of quality, in terms of academic, impact, is based on instructional faculty. There's no way around that one. And so it is a primary area of investment for the institution. So the real hope is obviously that we're going to be conservative in the sense of we don't know what the final budget will be until June, right? May revise, right? But at the same time, we're planning with positive enrollment growth with the idea that we're going to look for, even in philanthropic dollars, a major area of we are moving a lot of our areas looking at endowed faculty positions and creating opportunities through PACE dollars, and really front loading. So I appreciate the fact that this is important to you because it's important to me. So I am encouraged, let's say right now, because of the certain budget. The other area is, that is something that is my mantra, and I'm just going to say this over here. We get the least per FTE, in Fullerton, per student in the system. If we could get the median, we would be getting a base of $70 million per FTE. That would be huge. But the way the CSU allocates funding per FTE, and don't even ask me how it does it, because that's the magic box not many people know about. It creates this unfortunate vise for large institutions like San Diego State and Fullerton. That said, I do think that we are hopefully on the better end of this situation and that we will focus where our priorities are. So thank you for the question.
Okay. Any additional questions? Otherwise, we'll move on for the sake of time. Okay, we're going to go back in time slightly. I want to give a couple comments from a chair's report, which was a time certain at 3:05. So can you hit this slide? Just real briefly, just to get everyone on the same page. I'll keep this very short. Mario's pulling it up. And I'll post this on, you go next slide. Next. Oh. So first and foremost, it's my pleasure on behalf of Faculty Awards folks to recognize Sam Casegne as our Synod Excellence in Teaching awardee for this year. So Sam foolishly believed when I said, we'll get to you within the first 10 minutes. So there will be a formal reception and presentation and lecture by Sam on the 16th of April. So please mark your calendars. There'll be information coming out on that, 3:30 to 4:30 in Love Library. And just wanted to recognize him here and thank him for all of his efforts and for all the folks that were nominated and for the committee for their efforts. Next slide. Very briefly, just so everyone's on the same page, there'll be communications coming out from CCE. But remember, we moved up elections by 1 month pretty much for everyone to provide a longer runway for transitions. And so everything isn't happening in the last meeting. So this is just the layout This is in conversation with the chair of CCE. So we'll have a week starting the 16th through 20th for senator nominations. Then senator elections will be the next week. The week after will be ASCSU. There'll be one position that will be open. There'll be information coming out to that, to the campus community. And there'll be elections on March 13th to 16th. The March 10th, 13th, 9th to 13th. March 10th will be the regular Senate meeting. That will be at IVC, or SDSU IV. Old habits die hard. And I will show that in a second. But then we'll be back on April 7th. And at that meeting, we will have new senators and continuing senators voting for senators at large and also Senate officers. So that's 1 month earlier than typical. And I think that will help with everything. It certainly would have. I'm just glad that we voted for that as a constitutional change. I think it's logistically the right thing to do, more crossover time, et cetera. Next slide. In addition, the next meeting is at SDSU IV. So some information has been sent out. If you would like to attend that meeting in person, I encourage you to. I will be there. There will be some transportation, either in carpooling or bus. We're not quite sure yet exactly what the mode will be, but there'll be more Senate announcements coming out on that, and would encourage you to join us. If you cannot join us, just as we extend to our partners at SDSU IV a Zoom link based on their geography, a Zoom link will be provided to everyone at SDSU. What do we call our campus? The La Mesa? The Mesa? Has that ever been officially designated? It has been. No? Who knows? Here. If you're here and can't make it there, a Zoom will be provided to you. Next. Some miscellaneous updates. A budget proposal has been presented on behalf of Senate for discussion. I don't want to get all the details here, but essentially addressing some structural deficits, increasing some support for our lecturer senators who have no service component, and also recognizing staff senators who, within their collective bargaining agreement, have no service component. So it's a modicum, it's a small amount. We're already doing that. We're increasing a little bit, ideally, to match the work, not just here, but also the work within the committees you're required to serve upon. I'm going to skip the rest of this for now. Oh, the Senate Service Support Plan. I should say there was a structural deficit, meaning we're in the hole every year of almost $60,000. And that was due to extending support without securing the funding. So my goal this year is to try to close that as much as possible. One negotiation was we have the highest support, certainly of Senate officers, especially chairs and all the other officers. So we're going to trim 3 units off of that. So we're taking off the top because there's no other place to really take it. And so we've asked for $68,000 of additional base funding to close that structural deficit. So that's a negotiation. Along with it, the Senate compensation plan was the old name, but compensation sounds like you've been injured. Maybe you have been here, but we're going to call that now the Service Support Plan. And we're working on refining that, and it will reflect these increases in support for both staff and contingent faculty senators. So that's a negotiation part and parcel with the budget that we've proposed. And this is under discussion, but want to make you all aware as Senate folks. Next slide and last one. Proofpoint, there was a very spirited discussion at SEC about Proofpoint. If you were there, it was great. And one of the outcomes was a referral to ITT to come up with a conversation with IT about how we can make better mistakes tomorrow. It had to be done. It was in service to making sure students were not losing a massive amount of federal support, which happened last year through phishing. But it could have been done better. We can always improve. And so part of the conversation here is how can we improve both our, the consideration of new systems, their impaction, the communication of them, and their implementation. So that'll be a referral to ITT and partnership with IT. Senate Diversity Plan, we're hoping to discuss this, Roberto, at this Friday's DEI committee meeting. This is something that we probably could have placed on the annual agenda, but it's something we should be doing. So DEI has a referral on it, and we're going to have a conversation there on Friday and come back to Senate in March with some information there. And finally, the 3 annual Senate agenda items, University Budget Literacy and Transparency. Chair of Europe and myself had a great conversation with VP Wong and AVP Little about some questions, the questions that all of you submitted. And those questions are the corpus of sort of what will become an FAQ or sort of a needs assessment for the kinds of questions that are common around budget literacy and transparency, and they're going to inform our efforts. At the same time, we're reviewing what's out there. There's a lot of information out there. If you've been at Budget Hub, there's a cornucopia of information, but understanding where it is and how it's contextualized is something we can work on in partnership to improve. There's also a generative AI working group that's very informal. There's an information item on that for some folks tackling some of those questions, largely centered around the impact on our educational mission, but also more broadly. And finally, there are conversations in partnership with AS, with APMP, with various other committees, and our vice chair around our third one, which is sustaining and strengthening teacher-scholar model and promoting a shared vision. So quick updates. I'll add these to the agenda as just an information item, but it's a report. But just want to share that with you. If you've got any quick questions, we can do so. And we want to so get right into Provost Tong's report, and then we want to get back to business. Provost Tong, are any questions for me on any of these items? Great. Provost Tong, recognized.
Thank you, Stephen. I was told that I need to go really quick, so I'll have two quick updates. Okay. Last week, I attended the Board of Trustees meeting for the president, and I got a chance to talk to a lot of folks in the Chancellor's office about enrollment and how many additional students they're going to, ask us to take and all that. So right now, they only have budget for 1% additional across most campuses. Okay, so manageable. And I've been telling them that we're not going to take any additional ones if they don't fund completely, right? Not one of those one-time funding that only covers part of the cost, right? So, and also reminded them that don't wait until June or July, okay? And if they need to increase, this is across the system, do it now so that we can prepare for it. And right now, as you heard from the president, international numbers, applications are down about 20% for undergraduates and about more than 40% for graduate students, right? So a lot of universities are trying to make up for it by taking more of their in-state students. That means that our out-of-state students, the feeder states, are not going to be sending a lot of students as usual, right? So we need to be more careful about recruiting out-of-state students, and it's going to be very competitive for a lot of universities. So everybody is digging deeper, right, into their pool. So we are watching those numbers. Luckily, so far, yes, the applications are peaking again. We might be approaching 124,000 or even 125,000 this year again. And we need to make sure that the yields are good, right? So because the competition is a lot tougher now, and I want to thank everyone, especially those helping us with the Explore SDSU. Those are really helpful to by the way, students are still shopping that late, okay? So at that late date. So that's the quick update on enrollment. And then for the tenure track searches, as you heard me said it a few times, the president a few times last fall, even before we heard this slightly better news, budget news, right? We were just going to do it. We were going to do some tenure track searches for next round. So we just don't know how many. But the thing is, as Agnes mentioned earlier, there are lots of moving pieces, right? The news is better, but we still have a deficit, right? So that means that we still, individual division, academic affairs included, still has a deficit that we have to cover. So how many can we hire? We don't know. It depends on retirement, based on separation, based on student demands, and all kinds of things. And we will have a better picture in May or June, but we can't wait until then, right? We have to start the process now. So as you know, this process, we start a year and a half ahead, right? A year and a half ahead for the fall 2027 start. So that means we're starting this month, right? So I have scheduled a meeting already with your tenure track planning committee to talk about how we want to go about doing this, okay? Because this is going to be a really tough year. I'm sure a lot of you want more lines, and we don't have as many lines as normally. So what I'm telling people is maybe expect about half as many. Okay, if the news is better, maybe we'll go up, right? But we will start ranking them. So the forms are already available. We've told the deans, we've told the chairs and directors, start reviewing at the department level, college level, so that we can have a tenure track retreat in April as usual, okay? And it's gonna be, like it or not, it's gonna be FTES driven, right? Where we need to meet student demands, and I'm sure there are some exceptions we can make, but it's gonna be mostly go where the student demands are, right? So this is hopefully, as usual, we will finish this process by the first week of May, so that you all the allocations and everything done by first week of May, so that you can start planning and write the advertisement and all of that before you leave at the end of the spring semester. Okay. So that's my quick update.
Questions for Provost Tong? Okay, thank you. And Sam, you can leave if you want. You're not compelled to stay, but you're welcome to. Okay. Okay, we're going to pop back in. We have another time certain. Oh, I'm sorry. Senator Locke. Provost Tong, question?
Thank you. Thanks for that update, Provost Tong. I'm wondering if you can just speak very briefly, more generally, about the instruction budget, particularly the impact on contingent faculty and what's expected for next year there.
Yes, including lecturers and even staff, right? We have been prioritizing them because depending on the student demands and extra sections that we have to create. So yes, definitely, they will be included, including the supporting staff, whether it's an IST or a stockroom person or anybody. We will have to increase those. My hope is that by May, we have much better budget picture, and hopefully by June, really the final numbers, right? Really good, so that we can start cranking up at the beginning of the summer.
Okay, thank you. Just a quick follow-up to Pam's question. And I might have just misheard, when you say you'll be prioritizing lecturers and staff, can you elaborate on what specifically that means?
It means that whatever the student demand is, lots of waitlisted classes, lots of sections that we haven't been able to fill, right? And so those will be prioritized, obviously. So some departments are okay. Some are really short-handed because they have a lot higher student demands, and yet the sections are not enough. Right? So we'll have to increase those sections, whether it's a lecturer or a lab technician or whatever we need.
I think this is a good time to pause and yield the floor for the AS President's report. AS President Holstrom.
Hi, everybody. Great to see you. Happy New Year and happy start to your new semester. Hope that's going well. Just a refresher, my name's Corrine. I'm here with, actually, I'll just let you guys introduce yourselves really quick as we move into our new semester. We will also be joined by Nadia, who's our Vice President of University Affairs this semester. But I'll let everyone, the other student representation, introduce themselves as we move into the new semester.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jared Blackwell, and I am the graduate student body president this year. So we've already done some good work this year, and it's great to be part of this body. And thank you for allowing me to be here. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mayur Ramesh. I'll be the university student representative. Along with Jared, I work with him in the GSA.
Hi, is this on? Hi. Hi, I'm Abby. I'm the AS Vice President of External Relations, so I do a lot of the government relations, and I'm also our rep at the Cal State Student Association, so I do a lot of the CSU-wide stuff as well.
All right, now onto my report. A little bit on the Academic Partnership Agreement. This has been our collaboration with Academic Policy and Planning. Shout out Pam, wherever you are. She's been a huge help in that initiative and supporting all of those things. We're looking forward to getting specific with action items to lead the process for AP&P and general direction of that initiative. Also collaborating further with our University Council leadership on this, as that's where the resolution was written and discussed to create that document. So looking forward to continuing that work this semester. Other projects we're picking up, research and positionality on legislative bills for CHESS, which I'm going to let Abby speak a little bit on. Our SWANA Center survey and process, Mending Minds Week, which is AS's wellness-focused initiative in the spring. Your Voice Matters Week, which is an awareness campaign of the Your Voice Matters form that AS has for students, where we review and use it to connect students to their tailored needs. And then finally, Green Fest, which is largely known as the concert where student bands and a featured artist perform, but it's also a week of sustainability, education, and awareness events from our Green Love Commission. So exciting things happening this spring. We are also prioritizing conversations and information spreading in regards to everything happening right now, wanting students to feel supported and safe in our meetings and spaces. Gearing up for AS elections and all that entails. I said this in Senate Executive Council, as much as I would love to stay with you all for years and years. The beauty of AS is that our leadership changes every year, and that's what makes our shared governance model and this campus so special. So a new group of leaders will be sitting here with you in just a couple months. But I say that to encourage you all, to encourage students that you know who are active in your classes, your organizations, and students that you see holding leadership roles on campus. I encourage you to encourage them to apply. That application for these elected positions opened on January 24th, and it closes Friday the 13th. Another note on AS, we really pride ourselves on ensuring that students are represented in our various boards, committees, and commissions. Specifically, our AS bylaws call for representation in all of our university's academic colleges. Each college has their own college council. We did recently become aware that the undeclared major is now a department organized under Faculty Advancement and Student Success. As a result, we're working to collaborate with different campus partners to explore how the Undeclared Success Program can be appropriately reflected in our student government structure. Our goal remains that all students, including those who are undeclared, are represented in AS and always have a voice. And I look forward to providing more updates on this as more information becomes available and as we continue meeting to find a solution. And I'm now going to pass this off to Abby to talk a little bit about CHESS, which is a really important initiative that AS handles in the spring.
Hi, everyone. So CHESS is the California Higher Education Student Summit. So it's when we get together with student leaders from across all 23 CSUs, and we meet and we talk about system-wide issues, and then we also go into legislative spaces, specifically the San Diego offices that represent our campus to advocate for higher education policy. And so AS, SDSU, as well as working on recommending policies to CSSA that we feel align with the system-wide student interests right now. And all of that is also to say that if there's legislation that you're aware of or you think is interesting and that you think would be beneficial to students, feel free to forward that to Karine as well. And it's definitely something that we as a group can consider and talk about. Thank you.